Being disciplined, growing spiritually in life and ministry, planning for spiritual growth and personal management. So I really want to talk about three things today, which I hope is sort of on the money of where Steve wanted me to go. I want to talk just really briefly about work ethic, and then secondly about priorities, and then thirdly about organisation. Now I have actually organised some of that a little bit differently in this material, but I'll just take one of these and hand it on. We just want to work through that today, and hopefully it'll be really helpful. 1, 2, 3, 4. That was stuck together. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's pass this right now there, and just pass one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Good. All right, well, anyone come from you're all involved in ministry to some degree, I take it. Anyone been involved in ministry before, like full-time ministry before they came to Bible College? Yeah, so you were doing an internship or something, is that right?
I was intern and then I worked almost full time last week.
Okay, great. And over here?
Yeah, I did a 1-year internship back in my home church in New Zealand when I finished high school.
Good. So how did you find it? Was it busy, you guys, compared to what you'd done before? Sally saying yes, and
Well, I started from high school.
yeah.
Yes, it was a bit busier. My internship was long distance, so we did 6 block courses. So then I was just at church every day.
Okay then.
Doing my studies there, so I wasn't in class every day.
So you were studying as well as
studying as well as doing the internship. So through Pathways Bible College.
through Pathways. Okay, that's why that's structured. People structured things like that quite differently, really. But after being in ministry for a long time, I certainly have found that ministry is a very busy thing, and I think that there is really this conflict, if you like. Ministry is busy, and we find ourselves with conflicting values. We want to be faithful to the Lord in what we're doing, and so we tend to work hard. But then also there's this desire for leisure, because we want to just get time off. I've always struggled with how can we just get some time out? And in some ways, as Australians, it is one of the big things. We're fairly hedonistic as a society, and so I think it's important to talk about work ethic just briefly. Don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but just briefly to say that busyness is something and that tension between getting time off and working hard is something we need to live with. And it is something that it's not just in ministry, but across the board. According to Hugh McKay, who's a social researcher, some of you guys might have read some of his stuff, apparently Australians are fairly much overworked. He reckons, which is interesting. He says this: although the average number of hours worked by Australians is coming down, currently, this is back in 2007, standing at 37 hours per week, this is largely the product of the rise of part-time work. Full-time workers are employed on average for 44 hours per week. Part-time workers are employed for an average of 18 hours per week. Internationally, this puts Australia close to the top of the heap of high-income nations when it comes to long working hours, weekend work and casual employment. It's kind of interesting. It says we're second only to Japan, which is fascinating. I think we're second only to Japan when it comes to the number of people working more than 50 hours per week. 28% of Japanese and 22% of Australians. Second only to Italy when it comes to weekend work, and second only to Spain for casual or temporary employment. So, just my point with that is that sometimes when it comes to ministry, I think people come to things differently. My experience has been, this is not just from Aldinga Bay Baptist, this is my experience from talking to other ministers around the place as well, is that it depends on your background. Like I was a tradie before I was a pastor, I was a mechanic, and I think that helped instill in me a fairly good work ethic, because once I clocked on, because I worked for a dealership, and I worked for myself as well for a number of years. I used to work on your dad's car, Zach, we had lots of fun there. But when I was particularly when I was working in a dealership, we used to clock on in the morning, and there was if you were standing around, the boss would say, what are you standing around for? You know, we're paying you. If you've got nothing to do, you sweep the floors or you empty the bins or you do something. And sometimes in ministry, people have come from a background where they've actually been working a whole lot. And I think sometimes there's two things that go on, to be truthful. Sometimes, particularly if you are not a senior pastor or a sole pastor, but you are in an associate type role or a youth role, sometimes it is easy to slacken off because you've got a fair bit of discretionary time and not to drive yourself as hard as you should. And the reality is that most people are working hard. You know, going by McKay's stats, most people are working hard. And in ministry, because you've got discretionary time, you know, don't just take your foot off the pedal because you can. You need to make sure that you are working really hard, and we're working hard for the gospel. At the same time, you've got to be careful about not overworking to the point where you burn out and you fry yourself. So you've got to make sure you get some time out. So I want you guys to help me out a little bit here. What verses or what things in the Bible do you see that would be talking about that sort of thing, about work ethic? I just, you know, you're first year students, but you guys have been around the block a few times, most of you guys. So, you know, is there anything that comes to mind when it comes to work ethic that would sort of play into the things that we've been talking about?
Work as if you're working for the Lord, not for men.
Yeah, so Ephesians, it talks about that for sure.
It's the same one where it talks about not only working when somebody's watching.
Yeah, it's the same one.
Spot.
Yep, but that's good. So not just, you know, eye pleasers, doing the boss, because that was a classic when I was in the dealership for sure. The boss has just walked through, so grab a broom, grab a spanner, you know, and look busy. And but when he walks out, it's, you know, people. Anyway, enough. Anything else? Any other verses? What have you typically found? I mean, that's true. The Bible talks about, I think, in fact, work is a good thing, to Genesis 2:15 in the garden. Before sin, Adam is told to tend to the garden and to work, so it's there. Proverbs 6 warns against laziness. Matthew 25 is a story of the talents, and I figure that works for time as well, that we make sure that we are using everything we have for God's glory. Ephesians 6 is the passage that you boys just spoke about. Colossians also does the same thing. And the reality is that work will be taxing, and you'll feel like giving up. And that's because of a little thing called the curse, Genesis 3. And you know what works with tilling the ground and thorns and thistles also works in ministry too, doesn't it? Where the truth is that so many times we just feel like this is so futile, and it's really difficult. You feel like you're ploughing concrete, to use a term a friend of mine uses, ploughing concrete. It's like, yes, that's what ministry feels like sometimes, where it's just, it's just hard work and it's difficult. But the truth is that we're to keep on going and not give up, and at the same time also ensure you keep yourself fresh. What sort of things do you guys like to do to keep yourselves fresh, to get away from things? Because I'm advocating work hard, put in, and don't go too easy on yourself, because sometimes in ministry settings you can. And same way here at Bible College. But at the same time, make sure you don't burn out. So, what sort of things do you guys do to keep yourself fresh? And what do you think is just you know, what are good parameters? You know, what are some of the things we should be doing, building into our week to keep ourselves fresh?
Seeing family and friends.
Yeah. Does that help rejuvenate you?
Yes.
Yes, that's good.
Sometimes, or being by myself, like
Yeah.
just not seeing anyone.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, sometimes it's both, isn't it? That's all right. Anything else?
Doing exercise, like
Yeah.
I go for runs, it helps rejuvenate.
Yeah, I think I do that actually. I run a bit, and sweat the stress is the phrase that they use.
Prayer, although that can be pretty hard sometimes as well.
Yep, that's good. Thanks, Tom.
Sleep.
Sleep. Perfect. It's so important. Just make sure you get plenty of time. You know, there are seasons in life. That's how I've seen it. When we were first church planting, it was, in all honesty, I'm not sure that I could do that now, what I was doing then, because we were regularly working, 80-hour weeks, just trying to turn the wheel on this thing that we're trying to get going, and also didn't have all the tools in the toolbox. When you're new, it takes you a lot longer to prep for things, doesn't it? and it was really difficult, and we'll try. And so early days of church planting is we didn't have a big team around us, and so trying to write sermons, I was trying to get the church newsletter going most weeks, and I was running that myself, and I was running the youth group, and had a few guys around me, but I was pretty much putting all that stuff in. It was really hard, but I figured there are seasons, and then you've got to make sure you get time off as well. So I've been a big advocate for that. Over the 18 years I've been at Aldinga Bay, I've taken 2 big blocks off. I went on long service leave for 11 weeks, and then last year we took 3 months off as well, just needed, because I was just getting to the point where I was fried, and you've got to just walk away sometimes. And so build things into your life, take long periods of time off, etc. But then if you can't get the 3 months, obviously this is a long time into ministry before I got that. But make sure you're getting time out so you keep yourself fresh. And I like to go motorboat riding, I like to run, I like to surf. I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie sometimes, so those things are really helpful for me just to switch off and just get on a completely different page. But anyway, work ethic, 2 things. It is really important to say, as I look around the landscape, as I talk to pastors, and I think about own experience, there are 2 things that happen. Sometimes people hit ministry and they get away with things that they wouldn't ordinarily get away with in normal employment, and I don't think that's good enough. And then secondly, sometimes they push themselves so hard that they just fry, and we've got to watch out for both those things. So before you, before the Lord in a clear conscience, but I just want to talk about those things as they're really important. Okay, moving right along to the next part of what I want to talk about today, and that is priorities. And we'll just leave it there for a tick on that screen. I should put a blank slide in really, because I want to just focus our attention slightly different place. What are some of the priorities for ministry? So even if you're going to be a sole pastor, a senior pastor, an associate pastor, a youth pastor, what are some of the priorities? Really in broad terms, what are the priorities for ministry that you would see as the big things? I'll write some of these things down on the board as you continue. What do you reckon the priorities for ministry?
Caring for people.
Caring for people? Yep. So we just write care. Great. Yep.
Prayer.
Prayer? Great. Good.
Could it
From a
be?
leadership perspective.
Go
ahead.
Sorry.
From a leadership perspective, being in the Word regularly.
In the Word? Yep. So we're talking about personal here, or sort of preparation work? What are you thinking?
I think personal.
Personal.
Obviously preparation as well.
Yep, okay. And corporate. So that's, for sake of others. Okay, what else?
Making sure that your aims line up with the aims of your senior pastors in your church and stuff.
Okay then, so aims. So we're talking about aims, marrying, that'll do. Okay. What else?
Strengthening and growing others.
Yep. Yep, growing others. This is good, guys.
Reaching out.
Yeah. Exactly. Any others?
Maybe knowing people.
Relationships?
Yeah.
Good. I think it's really good. I think you guys are on the money in lots of ways, and important to just be thinking about that. I want us to reflect on that, because I think sometimes we can get things back to front. So have a look in here and read through that. If you all see that? That's Acts 6, 1-7, so you can look it up yourself if you want to. But I just want you to spend a minute reading that, and then I want you to tell me, in fact what we'll do is might be easier. Can we break up into groups there? That'll work okay. So what we'll do is we're going to break into 4 groups. So 2 on that side and 2 on that side. And just give me, from Acts 6, 1 to 7, the things that you see in there that are priorities for ministry. And then also I want you to look up, it's on the next slide, but you might want to look up in your own Bibles, 2 Timothy 4, 1 to 5, and the priorities for ministry you see there. Okay, so I'll write it down. So it's Acts 6 and 2 Timothy 4, 1 to 5. So the verses on the screen, 2 Timothy 4, 1 to 5. Just break up into 4 groups for just a few minutes and brainstorm, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about what we see as priorities for ministry out of those 2 passages.